The Last of Us Part 2 is a dark game, but given how things have been falling apart in real life, I was glad to get immersed in another world, even a violent and gritty one. One of my favorite moments in the game happens to be one of the darkest, where you play as the antagonist, Abby, in a theater. In it, Abby is trying to kill our protagonist, Ellie, for murdering her friends and the man she loved. Ellie acts as the boss battle here, where you're forced to try and kill her after having spent hours playing as her in the first place. It was too much. I wanted to shut the game off. This is not an uncommon take. Many games journalists and reviewers allude to not wanting to play or not enjoying the experience of playing the game.
Throughout the game, I often wanted to stop Ellie from making the choices she was making.
That doesn't mean Last of Us Part 2 isn't fun, but the two scenes in the theater and the beach are why that is. I'll explain why momentarily, but first, we have to discuss Abby. I like Abby, and I realize that's a controversial opinion. A lot of people don't seem to be able to connect with her, which is totally understandable. If you're the kind of person who would rather lose the Ellie fight just to see Abby die, then you might not be able to relate to what I'm about to say.
I really enjoy this game.
For the first act of the game, Abby is used as a device to put us in Ellie's headspace. There's a sense that there's more to her, but she's largely a blank-faced character who we're blocked off from totally understanding. For Ellie to go on a murder quest on Joel's behalf, we need to be fully on board with her perspective. But after the midpoint, where you start to play as Abby in full swing, I've observed one of two things tend to happen here. You, as a player, either delve deeper into hating the character, or you immerse yourself, even if it's just a little bit. We learn that Abby's motivation is entirely identical to Ellie's. She killed the man who killed her father, just like Ellie is trying to kill Abby for killing her surrogate father. These two are remarkably similar characters, right down to the love triangles. You get the sense that in a different life, they might have even been friends. Abby gives us a glimpse into who Ellie could become if Ellie fulfills her revenge quest. Someone who isn't satisfied, who loses everything. Abby has flaws.
Not our fault either. Those deaths are on them.
She has quirks.
Eyes on me. Abby, stop looking down.
And she also has virtues.
Let me go after him. I'll walk him back in. We'll get to the bottom.
No.
You said yourself the storm's a few
No.
days.
Just like any good character does. I'd argue that if you're ever on board with Ellie's motivation, you should be able to at least understand Abby. Abby's father is killed by Joel. Joel, in her story, is the original aggressor. Abby is plagued by nightmares because of it. She throws away a chance at happiness with Owen, who she loves, in favor of training so she can kill Joel. When she does away with him, hoping the nightmares will end, they don't.
Oh.
Easy.
It doesn't heal her to have taken revenge on Joel, it just creates a monster out of Ellie, who subsequently kills her loved ones.
You killed my friends.
It wasn't worth it for Abby to have taken Joel's life, and it doesn't undo her father's death. There is no justice in the end, not until she helps two Seraphite children who she once would have killed without a second thought.
Why are you helping us? I guess you don't deserve this. But also, I needed to.
She relearns through them what forgiveness and hope is.
May her light guide us through the storm.
When you're lost in the darkness, look for the light.
Only after that can the nightmares go away. To me, Last of Us Part 2 is a character-driven game, and Abby is just as compelling as Ellie is in this game and Joel was in the first game. All three experience trauma that you can sympathize with. All three become obsessed with grief, plagued by ghosts. All three succumb to selfish acts of violence as a solution to trauma. So when the game asked me to play as Abby to hurt Ellie, I cared about one for the same reasons I cared about the other. It was giving me no choice but to win a boss fight. And I didn't want to win that boss fight knowing full well what the stakes were for each character. Abby was willing to do it, but I, as the player, was not. As cheesy as it sounds, all I wanted was for them to lay down their arms and hug it out. The dissonance between the character and the player in this case was so strong that I almost wanted to turn the system off altogether. There's a term that's been floating around in games criticism for a while now called Ludonarrative dissonance, literally game story not in harmony, or more precisely, the gameplay systems don't align with the themes of the game. However, there cannot be dissonance when the theme isn't even about violence in the first place. I'll link a video by Porpoise explaining the whole situation. He uses the Uncharted series as an example and how it's been falsely labeled with the term. Like the Uncharted series, Last of Us Part 2 doesn't suffer from ludonarrative dissonance, but unlike Uncharted, its themes do revolve around violence. The moment-to-moment gameplay being fun is actually an example of the opposite of dissonance, harmony, because to Ellie, it's deserved.
Eat shit.
Both the WLF and Seraphites struck first. And in a world where murder is required to survive, it's easy to justify.
I just ran in there, grabbed his gun, and shot the guy in the face. How old were you? 14. How old were you when you first killed someone?
Even seemingly shallow aspects of the mechanics, like the NPCs having individual names, speaks to how there's something deeper under the surface, but how we aren't going to take the time to truly humanize those characters. We've got to progress with the story beats, like Ellie needs to chase after her objective. Her obsession is reflected in our eagerness to get through the level. The gameplay is helping us experience the theme of dehumanization. But does this all make Ellie herself a horrible person, or irredeemable? Does it make it absurd that she would spare Abby at the end? In my opinion, no. Ellie still understands the difference between killing for survival and killing needlessly. Ellie tries her best to be ethical, to not kill needlessly.
Tell me where she went and I'll think about letting you go. You guys can survive this, I just need her.
But she keeps failing. However, in the scene where she tortures Nora for information, it stops being about survival in her mind, and she's properly shaken for it. The gameplay and the story are in balance with Last of Us Part 2, where one does not contradict the other. So what do we call it when the player's emotions and the character action doesn't align? I tried researching it, but I wasn't able to pull up any terms. If it's been coined before in a book or something, please let me know in the comments. For now, I'll call this narrative device ludonarrative coercion. The gameplay isn't giving us a choice in how we interact with the mechanics, and does so in such a way that we don't emotionally or morally agree with what we are being made to do, thus lending thematic insight we would otherwise not have tapped into. I pondered the themes of the game because of the scene in the theater. Unlike the moment-to-moment gameplay where I personally dehumanized, I never reflected on what it was actually like to commit an act of violence on a non-playable character that I fully understood. I never considered that to Abby, Ellie is just a boss fight, another NPC, like the many we've killed as Ellie up to this point. Because of this, it got me thinking, do I personally villainize anyone who is otherwise a potential friend? I just don't know yet. When does someone cross the line into being entirely irredeemable? Are there reasons for people to do bad things to us? Is it even intentional or just a misunderstanding? If the first game was about what makes us human, this game is about how we see others as subhuman. It all clicked with me in this theater scene, and it cemented itself further on the beach. I started thinking about the entire game as not just about cycles of vengeance, but about dehumanizing and othering. Abby dehumanized Joel and saw him as an irredeemable monster in the same way that he probably felt about the surgeon operating on Ellie. This is why I feel so strongly about this game. And Neil Druckmann, the game's director, confirmed my feelings on the topic. It's a story about tribalism, of how we vilify and dehumanize those on the outside. So it is absolutely on purpose, in my opinion. So if The Last of Us Part 2 is an example of ludonarrative coercion, are there other games that do similar things? I could only think of two examples that come somewhat close, Metal Gear Solid 3 and Deltarune, but neither do quite the same thing as Last of Us Part 2. The boss in Metal Gear Solid 3 is someone we've come to know and care about. The game forces our hand to kill her, but it's something she permits in the first place. It's a duty that we must fulfill with her consent. It doesn't feel nearly as awful to do because of it, and the theme of Metal Gear Solid 3 is seen, essentially cultural relativism. And while echoes of that theme are felt throughout the boss fight, it doesn't illustrate the thesis statement as thoroughly as Last of Us Part 2 does, in my opinion. In the case of Deltarune, we are made to play as Susie, a violent classmate in your school. We play a sequence where we are forced to hurt Lancer, an NPC that we've come to care about at this point of the story. He won't get out of the way, so Susie starts to attack him. You cannot pass this point without hurting Lancer, and it doesn't feel great to do so. The themes of Deltarune, however, are about a lack of agency or control itself. and this sequence reinforces that, but how it makes a statement on it has yet to be seen. Deltarune is essentially a demo for a bigger game. For now, Last of Us Part 2 does things with its narrative as a video game that I've never personally experienced in such an intense way. While many of you probably don't feel the same way given the Abby character, if you do buy into her, it's one of the most incredible emotional experiences you'll ever have in a game. I think a lot of game stories could benefit from examining this phenomena of forcing player hand to do something they don't want to do, and apply it in interesting thematic ways. Let me know if you want to see more videos about The Last of Us Part 2. I loved it personally, and I think that a lot of things such as structure and pacing really worked for me. I could delve more into why I think that is, for example. Maybe counter some nitpicks I've heard over the few weeks since release. Thanks so much for watching. Goat Jesus out.